Our next guest loves nature just as much as we do,
Yes,
maybe more
maybe.
because he spends time alone in nature and really does recharge. And I appreciate that. He goes like way into nature. So Frederick is going to just jump on here. Right,
Perfect.
Frederick? Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna
I've loved your
spotlight him.
stories about that. Yeah.
The backpack behind me.
Yeah. I'd
That's
be
my
terrified of the
companion.
bears. I don't know. It's so courageous for you to go out there and just like be a part of the elements without fear.
I don't know. I don't think of it as courageous. But I had knee surgery a couple months ago, and I was crippled up for about 3 months. I couldn't take my hikes, and it was I hadn't realized how much my daily hikes had become a part of my mental health, right? Not
Mhm.
just my physical health, but my mental health. So
Yeah.
thankfully I'm back and I'm hiking and having a good time, and I get to think about stuff like this.
So glad. I'm so glad. Well, I'll just introduce him, Josh, like
Yeah,
formally
go
to
for it.
everybody. Okay. So, Frederick, he and I got to meet up in Texas recently and we did a keynote and I got to actually watch you in action.
Mm.
And how captivating. Honestly, it just is so neat to get to see each other in action. But okay, you guys, he's a speaker, a keynote speaker, author, podcaster, leadership coach. I love who you target for leadership too. You need to talk more about that because they need your support, which we'll get into. But you're about strategic leadership, right? So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the work that you do and what you can share.
Yeah, so I host the Assistant Principal podcast, and I always think of our assistant principals as kind of being the forgotten leaders, right? We focus a lot on teachers as we should. Principals have a lot of opportunities, but assistant principals just kind of, they fade away sometimes in our thinking. So I'm really passionate about helping those people. Today I want to talk about the motivation equation. Can we like jump in? Is that
Please do. Yes.
okay?
I wanted you to. Yeah.
So here's why I'm excited about this. Before I learned the before I learned the motivation equation, I judged people, right? When a kid wouldn't do the homework assignment, I judged them. When a parent wouldn't follow through on something we talked about, I judged them. When my colleagues wouldn't do what I thought they should be doing for kids, I judged them. And in that judgment, that inherently put me into conflict, in conflict with kids, in conflict with parents, in conflict with my colleagues. When I learned the motivation equation, it completely flipped that. And I was able to move from this place of judgment to a place of curiosity. And when I did that, I could stop being in conflict and I could actually begin to be in collaboration. So it's not an exaggeration. For me, the motivation equation transformed my leadership. It made me a better leader. And more importantly, it made me a better human being.
Oh, how did it make you a better human being? I want to know one thing that really shifted for you. I know you said before you were judgy, but what
Yeah,
else?
because when you stop judging people and you encounter some kind of difference or some kind of resistance, when you don't judge, you can then get curious, right? And so that invites us into the relationship, not out of the relationship.
That's awesome. And that's it. I mean, you use that expertise to kind of bring in there and humanize our assistant principals who desperately need your help. They desperately need you. So what kind of factors influence that equation? What goes into that?
Okay, so let's define motivation
Okay,
before
go
we get
ahead.
too far, right? Because
Yeah.
there are different definitions of motivation. So the way I define it is motivation is the willingness and ability of a person to do the things that we want them to do. So I'm talking about motivation in leadership context. But if we're thinking about kids in our classroom, right? If I want Bettina to do her math homework, that motivation is she have the willingness and ability to do the thing that I want her to do, right? So that's how we define it. Now, I think it's important to think about motivation as having three faces. There's the task face, the skill face, and then the behavior face. So if I just want Bettina to do her math homework, right? That is the task face. Is she going to do this thing? If I want my teacher friend, Miss Henson, to implement advisory with her students, well, that's requiring some new skills. So is she going to do that? I don't know. That's the skill face. And then finally, there's the behavior face. And I always think of this as the one, are we going to change our behaviors? And I always think about myself on this, right? Because I'm making those New Year's resolutions and say, I'm going to eat better and I'm going to take more walks and all that good stuff. Okay. Am I actually going to do that? Am I going to change my behavior? And for each of these three faces, there's what I call the ugly face. So when Bettina doesn't do her math homework, we say she's lazy. When Miss Henson doesn't implement the advisory program, we say she's resistant. And when we ourselves don't follow through on commitments to behavior, we criticize ourselves as being undisciplined, right? And I bet everybody in here listening has at one time judged yourself and said, wow, if I was just tougher, if I was stronger, if I was more disciplined, which is just so ridiculous, right? Everybody that's on here is super highly disciplined because you wouldn't be making time in the evening on a Thursday if you didn't have discipline, if you didn't have drive and passion and all the rest of it. So that's where these three ugly faces then again put us in place of judgment, which puts us into conflict. So that's the motivation piece. You want to know the motivation equation?
Yes, yes, because I was going to ask about that, and I know that there's a lot to talk about. Go ahead.
Okay, so I teach it this way when I'm doing speaking or doing a workshop. Imagine that you've left the school building, it's been a long day, you walk over, you get to your car, and just as you're getting ready to open the handle of the car door, you look over and you see 100 steps away in the parking lot, you see a brand new shiny quarter. Now, think to yourself in the audience here, how many of you would pause, go walk 100 steps to pick up that brand new shiny quarter, and then go back to your car? Now, when I do this in a live event, there's usually one or two people. I don't know, maybe they shop at Aldi or something like that, but barely anybody will ever go and walk and pick up that quarter. But imagine it's a dollar bill. You look and you see 100 steps away, a dollar bill. Would you go pick it up? Chances are that some of the people listening would, but many wouldn't. Usually about 20, 25% of people in an audience will say, yeah, I'll go walk the 50 steps to pick up that dollar bill. And then imagine you look and 10 steps away is a $100 bill, right? And of course, we're not going to walk, we're going to run and get that $100 bill. So I like to think of it this way. The number of steps is the effort. The denomination of the money is the value. And so the motivation equation is simply value divided by effort. It's value divided by effort. So when I've got my hand on that car door and I look out and I see that money and I look at the distance, I make a calculation. I calculate and think, in this moment, is it worth it for me to take that number of steps to pick up that denomination of money? Right? And if I decide not to, it doesn't mean I'm lazy. It doesn't mean I'm resistant. It doesn't mean I'm undisciplined, right? It just means that I made a calculation that the value is not worth the effort, right? And that's the motivation equation. It's super simple. And the thing that it does, you can see right there, right? When I meet resistance, when somebody doesn't do the thing that I want them to do or execute the skill or the behavior, I don't have to judge them. I just stop and get curious because when we meet resistance, all resistance is feedback. It's not saying, Charlie, I don't like your stuff. I'm not going to implement. Josh, I don't like your dog. It's just feedback. And so now I get curious and think, to me, this thing that I'm asking someone to do seems really valuable, and I don't think it's that hard. But they're resisting, which is telling me that they perceive the value and they perceive the difficulty as being different than what I do. So let's find out what's happening. And so then what do? I start to have conversations, right? And now I'm being present. Now I'm building the relationship. I'm finding out things, and now we can start to move forward
Hmm.
together.
I'm gonna I'm gonna ask you about mental health here for a second because when you say that about that effort and that motivation and the people are avoidant right now because things are so heavy. So how can you apply this to help invigorate people or influence them?
So I want to go back. I talked about my friend Bettina. She's an eighth grader at Roosevelt Middle School. And Bettina struggles to get her math homework done, right? And Miss Henson is actually her math teacher. And so Miss Henson carries a lot of judgment about Bettina, but Miss Henson doesn't know Bettina's story. So Bettina lives with her three younger siblings and her parents. Her parents both work second shift. So when Bettina finishes school, she runs home. She gets her three siblings settled in. She makes them a snack. She helps them with the homework. They get that stuff done. Then she's prepping dinner. They eat dinner. She finishes up. She cleans everything up because she wants it to be good for when mom and dad get home. So it's 8 o'clock and Bettina hasn't started her homework yet, right? On top of that, Bettina, when she does her homework, she always does English first because she loves her English teacher, right? He always makes her smile and laugh and feel good about herself. She saves math for last because she's terrible at math. And she knows she's terrible at math because her third grade teacher told her so, right? So she's carrying this narrative. Bettina also, her parents are documented. She was born in the United States, but a lot of her family members aren't. And so in the time that we're in, right, there's all this stress, and she's wondering when she gets home from school, are my aunt and uncle going to be around? Is something going to happen to our community? A lot of times she stays up late waiting for her mom and dad to get home because she needs that communication. She needs that connection and that reassurance. So this is a kid who is working at capacity, right? Everything's filled up. She doesn't have all this extra capacity to go out and take risks on math homework that her teacher thinks that she should. And so for me, when I'm thinking about it in terms of the mental health, and a lot of times those are things like with Bettina that we don't see, and we don't see unless we ask and we start to have the conversation. And so I think it's really thinking about the context that each person is working in, each kid is living in, each teacher is dealing with what we bring into school each day. But it's working at that individual level and getting curious and learning what the factors are that are at play in that person's life.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I just it's such an important thing to consider, and I love that you pulled everybody into that. Everybody. So yeah, Josh, did you have a question or do you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I want to talk about those factors that you just were mentioning, Frederick. So, what are the factors that influence that equation?
Okay, so I want to do just another example then. So let's
Please.
let's think about Charlie, Josh, we three decide we're going to go out on a backpacking trip, right? And I know you guys are all in because you already told me you like being in nature. I know you guys are fit and we could go do that. So imagine we're going to go for 3 days out. Josh, we're going to come to visit you. We're going to hike in the Rockies. We're going to do some big elevation gains and we're going to have a great time. And we're going to invite the audience along. Now, chances are pretty good that many people in the audience won't come along on this trip with us. And there's going to be three basic reasons. The first one is just appeal, right? Somebody listening here is a beach person. They have no interest climbing up a mountain, or they don't want to sleep on the ground with all the creepy crawly things, or they're afraid of the bears, right? It doesn't sound fun to go hike in the Rockies. I mean, I'm all jacked up. I'm salivating. Let's go. But other people just think, no, that sounds terrible. And conversely, if you ask me to go to the beach, nah, I'll pass. It just doesn't interest me. So that's appeal. And when we talk about that in the context of education, right, we have to think about are the things that we're asking kids and teachers to do they actually appeal to their interests or their desires or needs, right? So appeal is really powerful. The next thing is ability. Do I have the ability to do it? Can Bettina do the math homework? Maybe not. Maybe she can. We don't know because we got to explore that more. But do people actually have the ability? Do they have the background knowledge? If we're talking about hiking, did you just come off knee surgery? If so, you may not be able to go hike around in the Rockies, right? So it's that, do they have the ability? And then the third thing is capacity. And we saw that with Bettina's story too, right? This is a kid who's tapped out. She doesn't have a lot of energy. Extra energy. She doesn't have extra time. She doesn't have extra kind of emotional deposits that she can make and go out and take risks. She is working, living at capacity. And so that's the other thing. People may want to go on that hike in the Rockies, but if we say we're going to do this on September 10th, guess what? Most people listening here, they're going to be in school. They can't go hike in the Rockies, right? So you've got that appeal, the ability, and the capacity. And those are the general big three buckets that are going to influence the value and effort.
Nice. So now that we've broken down the equation, is there a simple way to either change or shift the equation?
Yeah. So there are lots of strategies that we can use, but there's
Sure.
one kind of general strategy. I hope people don't feel like it's cheating, but the simplest way to change the motivation equation is to build a relationship. Build a relationship. Because when Miss Henson takes the time to invest in Bettina and learn about Bettina, she's going to start to understand how to increase the appeal of the math to Bettina. Because as they get to know each other, right, Bettina's going to tell her in some way. When you build a relationship, you can determine whether somebody has the ability to do something or not. And if they don't have the ability, I mean, we can't ask somebody to do something they don't have the ability to do. So when we learn and we find out they don't have the ability to do this, now we step back and we focus on building that ability first, right? So we're not putting them in a lose-lose scenario. And then the other thing is that capacity piece. Again, we find out whether people have the capacity. And I'll add one thing to that. Whenever we're asking a kid to do something that's new, or we're asking a teacher to do something that's new, we are inherently asking them to take a risk, right? Implementing something you don't know how to do is risky because you could fail. When we have a relationship, when that person knows that we care, that we value, we respect them, and we have their back, we are decreasing risk, right? And so in decreasing risk, we're decreasing effort because a safer environment makes it an easier environment to go try stuff out in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Josh, anything else about that part?
No, I was gonna talk about something completely different, but I know that you may want to keep on this topic.
No, that's okay because I know we could keep going, but I want to hear what you're going to say next because I know that there's so much you can talk about, Frederick.
Well, Frederick and I connected a long time ago because of our leadership. One, his podcast, the Assistant Principal podcast, is brilliant, and he's been a guest on mine. I've been a guest on his. And your book, I want to touch on that too, because it's School Leader's Guide to Reclaiming Purpose. But this kind of ties in with what Charlie was talking about with mental health. There's so many people, educators, that have kind of lost their way due to the busyness and the stresses of the job. And you do such a beautiful way in the book about talking through just the reconnection piece of their passions and their values. So I'm feeling like there's probably folks right now that are listening, or they're going to be tuning in on YouTube later where we cut this up, that are feeling that right now. So, Frederick, is there something that they can do to help with that reconnection?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's so critical. I think one of the challenges we get in this really busy, crazy, stressful world is we get focused on tasks instead of people, right? And that's the natural thing that happens when I'm trying to fly through the list. I have too many things to do. I just start trying to check stuff off and I focus on tasks and not on people. The number one thing that we can do is to slow down, like maybe counterintuitive, but slow down and be present for people because the tasks are not what our work is about, right? It's not about getting Bettina to do her math homework. It's not about getting Miss Henson to implement advisory. It's about people. It's about human connection. And I think we're in a really interesting moment where people feel more disconnected. I mean, talk about mental health, right? Kids, but also adults are so disconnected. There's so much stress going on because of all that negativity. I think being fully present with people is more powerful now than it has ever been. And we know when someone comes into our orbit and they give us 100% of their time and their attention and they are focused and listening, we know that and we recognize how valuable that is. And I think many leaders underestimate the value of their presence and the value of listening. right? We want to go in, we want to help people solve their problems. So we want to talk, talk, talk. No, go in, ask questions, and then just listen. Charlie, how you doing today? Stop and listen. That is a great, great gift. Your ears are more important than your mouth.
Yeah, that's great. And people that you work with, they are tapped out and don't don't know where to turn. And so there's a lot that we can learn here. So what do you think we need to do it for the future of leadership? I know that's a big question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't prep you for that one, but I really want to know what you think. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think again to me it's the human piece. I have five core values. My first core value is that people are my purpose. That's why I'm here. And I think that's probably everybody listening has a core value that's pretty similar to that because you wouldn't be on here right now if it wasn't, right? So people are our purpose. I know that presence powers relationships. When I'm with people, when I give people my full presence, I am building those relationships. And I know that relationships amplify leadership, right? You can lead without relationships, but when you have relationships and you're leading, your leadership is amplified. And then as leaders, I believe that what we're doing is serving people. And so for me, when I connect those dots, that people are my purpose, that presence powers relationships, relationships amplify my leadership, and my leadership is about serving people, what that means to me is that every moment matters. Every moment tonight, you and I, and we're here together, right? That matters. That's important. I may be tired, but I got to show up because this is a chance for me to be present for you to be present for me. This is a chance for us to build a relationship. This is a chance for us to influence and serve each other. And then when we do that, we fulfill our purpose. So I know it's overly simplistic, but the fact is, like, you can't get everything done. There's nobody listening here who you could work 60 hours a week, you still would not get all your to-do list done. You wouldn't get everything checked in. And so what that means, if we can't do everything, it means really we get to choose what gets done and what doesn't get done. Right? That's the power. And are we going to choose tasks? Are we going to choose people? And we have that power to choose. And our choices reflect our values.
Yeah, for
So if we
sure.
say we're in it for people, let's choose to be present for people.
Let's talk about your podcast real quick. I had mentioned it, but I really want folks to check it out because regardless if you're influencing at a teacher level or at a district level, I still feel like this is such a brilliant piece of, just a PD in your pocket, if you will, Frederick. So will you share about the podcast and why you created that?
Well, yeah, we just dropped episode 300 2 weeks ago. So,
Congrats.
yeah, we had a big, big birthday and a big celebration. I created the Assistant Principal podcast particularly because when I was at Western Carolina University and Clemson University, I led principal licensure programs for 13 years. And so I developed a lot of relationships, developed a lot of colleagues who then would leave our program and go on and become assistant principals. And so I got to hear all the cool stuff they were doing, but I also got to hear all the horror stories and the challenges of that position. So when I decided to leave higher ed, I just kept thinking about all my friends and the things they were going through and looked around and just felt like people aren't talking into that space. People aren't talking to my people. So I felt like I wanted to wade in and I started the podcast. The other thing I have that plays with the podcast is I do a daily leadership email. It's 300 words or less, usually try to be 150, 200 words. And I did it because I know when you're an assistant principal and a teacher and a parent and all the stuff, but you get out of bed and you hit the ground running and you go through your day and you're working hard. But if you don't be intentional at the beginning of the day, you're going to miss opportunities. So I send this little message out at 6 a.m. every work day, some kind of message about being intentional, a story, something to think about, so that when we start our days as leaders, we can take that 30 seconds, check that email, and just think, okay, I need to be mindful of this today. And I love for me, the podcast and the daily email consistently play with each other. And like you, Josh, I try to make a podcast that is very practical, right? I want people to come in and listen to two friends talking and then walk away with something that they can implement.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful resource, and I definitely want folks to check out all of the different things that you're doing, Frederick. So, where would you direct them in regards to either your website or social media?
So you can just go to frederickbuskey.com and get access to all the stuff there. You'll get a pop-up that invites you to subscribe to that email if you want. Don't feel pressured, of course. And you can email me at frederick@frederickbuskey.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn, and I think it's Strategic Leadership Consulting.
Yeah, we put that. By the way, Josh already put your website in the chat. So thank you. He's already on that. He's good at that.
I'm on it. I put the leadership newsletter to the link in the chat for everyone too.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. And if you go to thrivingeducator.org/speakers, all of his connections are there too. The website, all your social media stuff's there. So just go ahead and check that out because you're going to want to bring this story, this information to your leaders, you guys. If you need a keynote speaker, call him up. I'm telling you, it's great. I saw it firsthand, so I can say that.
Yep.
You're so
Yeah.
kind. Hey, can I say one more thing when we talk
course.
about how hard this job is and how we sustain ourselves?
course.
It's having community, being intentional about who we surround ourselves with, and having community like this. And I know you both, Josh, Charlie, you guys have been so influential in my life and just such incredible people. And when we actively cultivate a community of caring, good people, that is another way that we sustain ourselves.
That's so kind.
It's very kind. Yeah.
So true. Like when we can all support each other, it's very true. So I appreciate you said that you said that.
Yep. Love you guys.
You
Love
too,
you too,
man.
man. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Okay.